your friend has got a lot to share.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Radio Friends again. It's the 2nd of February, 2024. And a lot of people have been anticipating this show. But we've got quite a group with us this morning, and including a man you see right there. It's Joey Reynolds. And Joey's joining us for the first time, and I'm sure he's going to leave right now and lock himself in the closet for the rest of the few hours. So let's go around the room. I'm Steve Parker. We've got Bob Craig is here, Dave Overson. There's Joey, as I had mentioned. Okay, so I'm going to go. Let's bring everybody up. So how about it, Bob? Say good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Joey. Nice to see you again.
You too. Good.
We got Dave Overson here.
Hey, Joey, how are things going, Joey? How's Lakewood, New Jersey going?
It got it's the lower Borscht Belt. It got very Jewish.
I remember those days.
That's the only place well, ShopRite is a store that has those double carts because they have 6 kids, and all of those guys in Lakewood, New Jersey, who are graduates of that radio station I had. Every one of them is still alive and doing well. So that's a good thing, isn't it? No one had died from that experience. That was 1977.
Yep.
But I killed a few in other stations.
That's Ed Bruder's with us, your archivist and mine, WDRCOBG.com. Hi, Ed.
Indeed, Stephen. Good morning, everybody.
Jim morning. Harrington's here. Hi, Jim.
Hi, guys. Good morning. Good morning, Joey. Welcome.
Oh, good. Thank you.
John Landry's here.
Good morning, Steve. Joey. Hi, everybody.
And let's see. Everybody's moving around here, jumping back and forth. Lee Gordon's here.
Hi. Greetings from not so sunny Florida.
And I thought you were in the POP newsroom. I'll be.
Oh well, the magic of television.
Ron Pell is here. Hi, Ron.
Morning, everybody. Joey, nice to see you. Been a long time.
Too. I'll show you my medication.
Nice to see that.
That keeps us going. Wait a minute. What should I take now? Oh, wow. This one's good. Yeah. Let's see. This is for bad broadcasts. Yeah. A double dose of this one. Wow. I should be funny in about 10 minutes.
You need one of these just to know what day of the week it is?
I got one.
There you go. I got one of those.
Russ Oasis. Morning, Russ.
Morning, everyone. I just want you to know that I got fired in extra time for just hanging around Joey.
Yeah, you did.
Pete Solange with us. Hi, Pete.
Hello, Steve. Hello, everybody. Hello, Joey. It's nice to see y'all.
Oh, guys, it was a great group. Wow.
Yep. And Ron Pell is here. Did I get you?
You already introduced me, Steve.
Where's Ron?
Pat Sheehan.
Pat Sheehan out here in the news department, still waiting for Joey to show up once again after hanging out the window on Earth Day.
Carmen, Tracy's got all kinds of stuff about Joey and everybody else. Hi, Joey. Hi.
How are you guys?
He's still there, and I'm still here. Good morning again, everybody. Joey, welcome to the Radio Ranch. Yeah, that's it.
I think I've covered everybody. Scream if I.
And that's it. Thanks for joining us. Have a good day. Bye.
And you forgot Pete Solan. You forgot.
No. He got me. Forgot Ted Dalicu.
Ted Dalicu from west coast of Florida, which is sunny this morning. And Joey, I've never worked with you and never met you, but I've heard so much from so many people about you that I feel like I know you already. And it's good to see you.
Well,
I think
I'm feeling celebrated this morning. I thought I was just going to be part of a gangbang. Thank you. Cool.
And Steve forgot Greg up here in Northampton, Massachusetts.
Oh, there you are, Greg. Sorry, I didn't see you on my screen there.
Greg worked with Joey for 1 week, I think, when you did a fill-in for Jeremy Savage on Kiss FM.
FM, yep.
I wouldn't have ever been on the air at Kiss FM if you didn't drag me in to say something. I don't remember what it was. I think I was working hard enough.
Well, it's It's quite a group here this morning for the February 2nd. He's holding up. Oh, we got to remember the union. Yes, let's put a good plug in for that. Oh, God. But yeah, Joey Reynolds has had quite a career, so we thought maybe he could share some stories. And as I mentioned in the email, Dave stand by. Overson does a lot of our editing after the fact. So Joey, other than the cheesecake business, what have you been up to?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts, and you should never give a microphone to a guy like me because I never know how to get off stage. I'm very much like Billy Joel, whose new record is probably the worst thing he's ever done. You know, when you're a standard classic artist, you got to know when the hell to leave the stage, and I wanted to mention that about him. And I like him very much. I was at the Hall of Fame in Long Island. I emceed it a while ago. But, you know, some of us just hold on too long. And that's what I was going to talk about is, you know, I was in China. I was known as on too long. And this is just not the way that you go out of this business, you know, by doing a show because you have nothing to do. But a lot of people, like I think on Monday, who's coming back on CBS? Somebody's coming back. I don't know. Everybody's coming. Jon Stewart's coming back.
Oh, yeah.
And Bon Jovi's got an album coming out. Everybody wants to, they all want to come back. And then, you know, I'm looking here and I'm saying, I don't want to be the comeback kid. So I want to do something different. I want to move ahead. And I did. I was filling my tank with gas the other day and I fell on my head. And I have now staples in the back.
Oh no!
And I went to the doctor at Lenox Hill and on the emergency room. No ambulance. And when I got in there, the doctor said he's going to put staples in my head. And I said, "What?" You know. He said, "Well, what else can I use?" I said, "Well, in my case, probably crazy glue." But this is what's happened to me. I fell down and no damage on my head except the gash. And I'm still thinking the same way. And my friends are saying, geez, I hope you change your mind somewhere along the line because you still have these wild ideas. My latest thing is what I was going to talk about is I think we need a farm team for radio. And I called Dick Robinson, and speaking of Connecticut, and I said, why don't you take the schools? This is a couple of years I started this campaign. And why don't you turn them into a workspace for people who want to be in broadcasting other than tech and you know, talent. So you have a place to actually work and be paid. And he didn't think that was such a good idea at the time. Plus his kids, I think, are running the company. So I ran over to the Friars Club and I said, you know, I could make a deal with Viacom, have them put one of their off channels in the space downstairs here and hire people to do newcomers, hire them, pay them, because it's professional. When you get paid, you're pro. And so my idea was to have them turn the thing into a place where you can train comics and talk show hosts. One of the few things that people don't know, and I was wasting a lot of time with talk, but I hope you don't mind this. But, you know, it's not one-liners. But I was, when I first went to LA, the very first time, and I was single and crazy, always crazy. And I wasn't doing a lot of drugs yet, just some of them. And it was a boutique. So I went to Harvey Lembeck's class. He was a teacher of sitcoms, which were in black and white earlier days until Desi Lou. And he had classes for all of us to learn to do sitcoms. And I was partnered with, as a matter of fact, Jack Lemon's son lives in Connecticut, Chris Lemon. And he and I were partnered together, and neither one of us could remember lines. We weren't engaging. We didn't ad-lib well on the stand-up stuff that we were supposed to do with the improv. So we sucked at improv, sucked at acting. We were two lost children, even though he was a famous star's son. And I had a reputation for at least being quick. And nothing happened until Harvey let us just be ourselves, and we made fun of everything. And when we started doing that, we had an act. And as a matter of fact, Jack Lemmon wanted his son to write a book, but he never would do it, about his father until he died. And then, of course, he had no vote on it. And Chris did write a book. And he went to Elaine's a few years ago in New York. And next to him was Neil Simon and Cliff Robertson. And I was at the table, and Neil Simon turned to Chris, and he said, "Boy, you become quite a great writer." And I said to Chris later on, I said, "Can you imagine, Neil Simon just told you what a good writer you are, and we were two assholes that couldn't get out of the way at Harvey Lembeck's. And I got to be pretty popular on the radio, and you got to do this." I said, all because we had the freedom of expression when Harvey let us loose. And so I was telling the story to the Friars. I said, this is what we need to do. And radio started in a formal application. None of us had the chops for that. I mean, Rimsky-Korsakov, we weren't good announcers, but we were really good clowns and promotion men. And I think a lot of that got lost in the formal application. Not only Boston radio, everybody always wants to blame Bill Drake, but it's really that we became formatic in everything. And now, of course, it's conglomerates, and they only want one show for 400 cities. So I'm trying to get that thing open to where we can have some young talent come in. And there's a couple of people I noticed on the air, but there's not a lot of us anymore. There's not a bunch of us who had this enthusiasm, and we had to work our way up. And in the earlier days, there were fewer stations, of course, and you had to get in when someone either died or you were related, or you got very lucky when someone didn't show up, and you'd go on the air. I think somewhere along the line, we have to start training people. That's what I was going to bring up here today. I know it's serious, but I wanted to mention that we got to have some place for us, for the young people to work. I mean, there's no place for anybody to work and get paid. So I want to throw that out to this little crowd here, because we're all seniors and golden and experienced. And what are the thoughts on that?
Joey, I think a lot of people, younger people, have trouble communicating and a lack of social skills and don't know how to talk and don't know how to, perform like we did ages ago. So I think there's a social gap in here that's missing, knowing how to communicate with people.
They can text.
Texting, yeah.
TikTok videos. That's the way people are communicating. That's the way they're breaking into their entertainment field, is through TikTok videos and influencer videos. And it's a whole different, they're not broadcasting to an audience. They're trying to find an audience that isn't there and then suddenly appears. So it's kind of very Gossamer kind of deal, where you just keep doing stuff until somebody says, "Oh, you're doing something," and it's nothing of any organization, and it disappears. It changes every time, and it disappears.
Yeah, and if you try to communicate to somebody who really doesn't understand radio the way we did, it'd be very difficult to communicate to them exactly what you want to do and how it can be done, and the possibilities, could be endless. So
radio's changed so much. Excuse me. Radio's changed so much that you're just doing voice tracks. You're not even adding the personality to your voice tracks, and that's what's killed radio. You're not sitting there mixing.
You know what I'm thinking also is there's no such thing as small market radio anymore to get started. No. How many started nights on an AM radio station in the middle of nowhere? I did, Bangor, Maine. But you can be sure they're running some sort of a satellite show or other garbage, and nobody getting that chance now.
Well, Joey mentioned about 400 stations, and that's the whole thing, is that it's all become homogenized, and the distinct nature of different markets changes, and technology has moved us away from the broadcasting into this narrowcasting, individual, everybody has a voice and something to say, and it's just not true. But the fact is, it's pulling us apart as a society, because we're missing that sense of community.
A lot of the stuff isn't in real time at this point anyway. I mean, if you listen, Greg, if you're listening to WARE up in Northampton or any of those stations and you're hearing the jocks, they're all voice track. There's no spontaneity. There's no live spots. It's all, Jack in the Box.
Absolutely. In addition to all of that, when consultants came in the mid to late 70s and they said, well, we've got a slogan, it's fun to listen to at work. And the GM said to the program directors, just tell the jocks to focus on that line. And they went hog wild with it. And that's all they did is they took all the personality out of radio and changed it to all these liners that say nothing. And now everybody still does that.
Well, Joey's unpredictability is what made Joey a star.
No question.
No, I was an asshole. And
that too.
People are intrigued by that. They like acting. I mean, there is a social condition. You mentioned social. Social comes from mainstream. People don't get up in the morning and have this great creative juice and go online and be very wonderfully entertaining. As a rule, now some are, but they got it somewhere else. They got it from over the air. Whether we like over the air to die or to continue on to something else, the fact is that people still rely on it for the gossip. They rely on it for the information so they can make the comments that they make on the social. So social is still connected to the mainstream somewhat. And that's a good connection, but we need to take advantage of all of it. And Russ always says, you own stations, you've been an ad agency guy, you've been on the air. I mean, you have the triple threat. And I want to hear what you have to say about this because specifically because you have the multi-experience.
Well, honestly, Joey, I think that I hate to say this. I mean, I hate to say this more than anything, but I think that there's nothing that could save radio now. I mean, they've dirtied the name so that the kids coming up, when we were kids, we aspired to be on the air. We aspired to communicate. We aspired to be clowns, and nobody aspires to that now. If you ask a 12-year-old kid what their favorite radio station is, they look at you like, "What are you talking about?" So, I mean, I hate to say it, but I think that looking to resurrect the industry is almost an impossibility. It really is.
Yeah, one of the only things that could possibly do that is if there would be a way that there's something on there that would get all of a sudden these kids to say, "Oh, did you hear about radio?" It's like Polaroid camera.
Have you guys noticed that the humor has changed too? I mean, the things that were funny to Joey and myself and other guys, they don't get it nowadays.
Yeah,
right? At least in my opinion. I mean,
They're
right
talking
now,
over their heads.
You look at the commercials on TV. What they think is funny for a commercial, a punchline for a spot, I look at it and go, it doesn't make any sense. But somebody in an advertising agency on Fifth Avenue or someplace said, "Hey, that's going to work for our product because it's funny," and it's not.
It's not.
Well, the business is driven by advertising, and the advertising is why we are on the air. So the media is definitely going to play to the agencies, and without a doubt, do the things that are going to keep them in the spotlight. I don't think anybody who has radio and television today is free. I think they're all tied into something, and that's just the way it became. I don't know how to unfree it or how to free it up. But I think somewhere comedy is still, things are still funny. The late night talk show guys on TV are not funny. They're ironic.
Yep.
Now, there are very few people who were funny and ironic at the same time. Jackie Mason was one. George Carlin was one. They were ironic and funny. These guys are not funny. They're simply ironic. All they're doing is just one-liners against something that they think the audience will laugh because, well, actually, the audience doesn't laugh. We think. They say things that are profound, maybe, or they're thoughtful, but they're not funny. You want to go to bed laughing with Johnny Carson. Yeah. You want to laugh at Don Rickles or one of those guys, not because I want them to come back, but I'm just saying, although that's not a bad idea. But I like the punchline to be something clever and ironic. And they don't know how to do that yet. We've been hiring people who are sketch players on Saturday Night Live. or who are talk show hosts who do politics, and that's what they do. And everything's about politics now.
Yeah.
Not that it ever was. Without, I mean, we all lived in a political situation in radio all our lives. But we got rid of the equal time law, and when we did that years ago, what happened? All of a sudden, you have Rush Limbaugh could do a 4-hour show and not have to have a Democrat on it. This changed the texture. And then you had Fox, who could be all Republican all the time, and MSNBC and CNBC and whoever. They could all be isolated and packaged into a political choice. And so what we're doing is appealing. I mean, the industry, television especially, radio talk shows are a whole different game. But I think the television people are appealing to the particular passion of the party, the agenda of the party, and I don't know that we need to have that as an eternal format. I mean, what's going to happen after this next election? They're going to start running for office again. It's just where does it stop?
It's true. Rodney Dangerfield, would he make it today?
Oh my God, sure. They got a new club now. It's called Rodney's, and it's at his place.
Really?
And they just opened it this month, yeah. And we're trying to bring comedy back, humor. And there's a lot of humor. I mean, besides the foibles and the mistakes we all make, but there's one-liners, there's jokes, and they're funny, and people do have that sense of humor, but not everybody has it. But people have that, and there's no place to put it exactly. Yes. And on television, for instance, as you well know, you got those two that replaced. Oh my God, who was that? What's her name in the morning at 9 o'clock on ABC? Kelly Ripka.
Oh, yeah.
She's got the talent of a flea, and then she drags her husband into it, who's a weightlifter. I mean, what are we doing? Where are the people who have the brilliance and the excellence who you would watch, even Howard Stern, and you say, wow, you couldn't take your ears off of listening to him, or Imus, or any one of the shock guys, or Bob Grant. I mean, we've erased every personality, including Oprah. Nobody's on anymore. They got rid of Letterman, got rid of Oprah, got rid of Regis Philbin, even ahead of their time. And we don't have personalities anymore because they're a pain in the ass, they cost money. And also, they take us in a singular direction, not a format direction. That's my understanding.
I'll mention Gayle King, my former co-anchor at Channel 3, who is now at least, and I'm dying watching her with Charles Barkley at the moment. But as a personality, and certainly Rush Limbaugh did a lot for radio across the country, and again in a syndicated way. And a different kind of humor, and that I think he made political humor something that was acceptable, which has now led to the reaction of the left, which has led to what's happened on MSNBC and CNN versus Fox, and it's pulling us apart. There's no center, and there's no common discussion or common humor that's out there. That's, I think, where you're going with this, Joey, and the question about where do you find that? It's not in the Real Housewives of Denver or whatever,
I think that's spot on, Pat.
I like hearing your opinions, frankly, because I'm a good spokesperson for a lot of this crap. And I talk to a lot of people because first of all, I had a talk show on WOR for 15 years. And we didn't take phone calls, and I didn't play music, and I didn't talk politics. So except for bad jokes. So, I had 15 years of that. So I had interviewed about everybody in New York twice. And in all that time, I made a lot of friends and I got respect that I never had earlier because I was always acting out somewhere. And, when I got all that respect and everybody starts to talk to me now like I'm a senior citizen, all of a sudden they're paying attention to me, except for my family. These guys are all very interested in this, in my group, and many of them are corporate heads, and they're concerned about the good of the country and where we're going because we're so separated, and the community has been lost. But these are issues. So I wanted to say to you that I wanted to hear this feedback here, because I talk to a lot of people that call me and they'll ask me. There's a Zoom call today with Lee Well, he put XM Sirius together, and our call.
Lee Abrams.
Yeah, Lee Abrams at 1 o'clock today. I'm on that call. It's an industry call. So when I like you guys, and I want to hear what you have to say, because I don't have enough relationship with great talents, which everyone on this screen is just about. I can't name anyone. A couple I don't know, but with great talents, all right here. What happened? Where can we get new talents? Or am I just an asshole again?
You got to have some inspiration too. I remember when I was a kid in high school, in growing up in New Hampshire, and I had my little radio that I had to tune in at night to WKBW in Buffalo to listen to Joey, and that was part of the inspiration for me to want to get into the business. Yeah. And Dick McDonough was on my local station, and so there were personalities that I listened to on the radio that barely exist anymore. And so the generation, if they do happen to stumble upon a radio, they're not necessarily inspired to want to be part of it like I wasn't, like I assume most of the other guys on the screen were.
Well, I think I get the idea of a little feedback from Russ that I'm trying to redo what we already did, and that's not exactly it. That's not what I'm about. I want to see us do something with the communications. I go to the CES every year because I lived with Jack Wayman, who founded the thing. He died 2 years ago, 95 years old. And Jack and I've had the CES every year for years, and I go for the innovations and I go for the chalk talk, because that's where you learn things, not necessarily the things I can go to Best Buy and see. So in the innovations, Steve Wozniak gave us a company. It was a public company that didn't make it, called Zeus. And what he did after he left Apple was he put this same thing that OnStar was doing for General Motors, which was to communicate by satellite. And you could take this chip and put it anywhere, even on a baby's diaper, and find out and track the child all over the place. But you couldn't find out where the phone was, and at that time. So Steve had put that company together, but it was too soon because of streaming wasn't here yet. And then the streaming, when it first began, was buffering. The buffering was a problem because you couldn't watch it. It was kind of unwatchable. And that's when I did the show in Times Square at the NASDAQ window. That now is Peacock, incidentally, that channel. But when you put the medias together, see, radio was David Sarnoff started television with radio, and that's how it began. And then CBS followed suit with George Burns and all the other things that they had, Jack Benny. But the radio was a good part of television in the beginning, and then television became an enemy, and we've had a lot of survival in radio. We had to come back a couple of times, and Rush Limbaugh was one of them. You're right about that. And we have had this whole stream of consciousness on the air, and now we don't have that so much because we're separated. What would be wrong with putting? Some people are doing it now. They're doing the radio and the television and the internet together, doing the triple cast. What would be wrong with that? How about that as a medium instead of trying to save radio, which is not what I'm trying to do?
Well, it's interesting, you got to get those numbers too, Joey, because I don't know the exact numbers. Ron Pell probably does, but when you go off into the world now, everybody wants to do a podcast, and unless you have a delivery system or you have a way to tell people about it, a podcast is just not worth it. But Ron, how many people did you say are listening into Joe Rogan?
His downloads, he probably gets 20 million downloads a month, maybe more.
I mean, that
and Joey, you probably know this, but Spotify gave Joe Rogan, kind of gave him a contract of $200 million because he's the biggest podcaster. Podcasting is kind of taken over. You talk about radio. Everybody who doesn't have a podcast. There are 2.5 million podcasts. It's crazy. And Steve just made a good point. Without the advertising, without letting people know about it, who cares? Nobody's going to find it. And if you don't have downloads, you can't sell advertising. If you can't sell advertising, well, good luck. But
is the fan base there for this kind of support from the sponsors? I mean, are people loving it the way they loved radio or listening to
Well,
it?
again, it's a very individual. A podcast is a very individual thing. I listen to a lot of podcasts, mostly about health and fitness, because that's kind of what I'm into now. But I mean, I want to know, there's a guy named, here's a good one. There's a guy on YouTube called Thomas DeLauer. None of you guys have probably ever heard of him. Well, he has about 12 million followers a month. 12 million followers a month. Guy's making a fortune because, if you have 12 million people who are watching your channel on YouTube, advertisers, you don't have to go after the advertisers. They'll find you and they want to advertise on your program. And the thing about podcasting, which is interesting, is from a personality standpoint, most podcasts, the podcaster is actually doing the spots. Joey, one of the things that's ruined radio, in my opinion, is that if you listen to a radio station today, a top 40 radio station, CHR in Hartford, we use KISS as an example, was Greg brought up. When they go into a spot break, they run 15 commercials in a row. Well, who the hell listens to that? Who's going to listen to 15 commercials? When you were on the air, I remember when you came back to Connecticut, we had that I think the 75th anniversary of whatever which one it was. You were with Jerry Christopher, and you did his show. That was one of the greatest radio I think anybody ever heard when you came back, and I forget what year that was. I guess it was the 1990s. And I remember you did a bit with the kid who was the receptionist, this Hispanic kid. You brought him into the studio and you started running with him. You were actually running in place while you were on the air. I don't know if you remember that, but it was one of the funniest bits. And this poor kid didn't know what hit him. Like, what am I doing? And he was in the studio on the air. It was hilarious. And as you said, that doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was a perfect example. When Joey went in there, that was the 35th anniversary of rock and roll. And that was 1995. And when Joey went in there, I mean, he blew everybody else away. Jerry Christopher was
amazing.
Somewhere. Jerry didn't know what to do. When you bring in that kind of talent and let them run, I mean, and I know I always go back to my dad, but my dad loved Joey. You know why? Because my dad was right on the same wavelength with him. If he was getting something, my dad would go, "What happened?" And at the same time, he was wiping tears out of his eyes. I sat there, the night that you stuck the record on the first time out on Blue Hills Avenue. My dad was standing in the dinette while you were getting busted. I mean, he always, when the elevator, when you did that, he's going, "What did he?" So he basically knew that you were the shock jock, and he wanted to just show you how to shock him even more. Nobody.
Well, we had when I left DRC and I went to Philly. WIBG, Rittenhouse Square is very gay. And Charlie authored this. He was a genius. He was a guy who never took credit for anything. And also behind the scenes, you had Bertha Porter, who did the music. And she was rigid and dedicated. And, she had integrity. Of all things, she had integrity. She didn't dress well, and she didn't look pretty, and she smelled, but she had integrity. And your father also had a great sense of humor, and he was wonderfully hidden behind the corporate veil. He had one job all his life, only one job. He never worked for anybody else, one person. And I've had 40 jobs, I think, or maybe more. We had a lot of, we were creative. That's all. We were fun, and we did what we wanted, like I do now. I still do it now. I do it out of the car. I had fun doing my thing out of the car yesterday, and I got rear-ended while I'm doing a funny bit, and it wasn't planned. I just got my ass kicked, and here I had the stitches in my head. I got you got to make comedy out of it. I'm not going to recreate it for you here, but I just wanted to, on this thing today, I wanted to see who was here, and I see John Landry left. But he's a really wonderful talent. I just think that I'd like to see what you guys, we don't hear from each other on these matters anymore. There's kind of like there's a quiet complaint, but not, and then a satisfaction with, we've lost a lot of people. Obviously, I'm 80 years old. Where am I going? So when you do these things, these broadcasts like this, like we're having, this is a broadcast, and we sit down and talk. I really don't get the input. That's why I use this platform. I hope you don't get mad at that, because we're not doing shtick. I was doing more about what conscience. I like comedy and conscience. I like both. So
Hey,
I
Joey.
apologize for taking and sucking the air out of the iPhone, but I wanted to put this to a question. I got a little bit of insight now. I see what you're saying to me. You're telling what I'm getting. Let me just, can I synopsize this for a minute? Take another minute. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. What I get out of this is I'm sounding like I want things to be the way they were.
We all do.
Russ seemed to indicate that. That's where I got that. And I kind of get the idea that you think that I don't like what's happening as a group now. You don't like I don't like what's happening with the iPods. I used to say are for people who can't get jobs in radio, but there is no radio. They're not like we knew it at all. Certainly not that. And I've been offered a job. Can you imagine that? 80 years old, and somebody wants to put me on the air and have me do what I do on the air again. And I'm very careful about that now because I don't want to make that return engagement I've just made fun of earlier on with Billy Joel. I don't want to be the closing act on my own show. I would like to bring some fresh stuff here. And so what I've done is let me just say this to you. All right, I'm talking a lot, but it's almost shop talk. I had an idea. How do you get around the agencies? Russ, you're going to hate this. Russ had the ad agency was terrific, and he invented a lot of things in Miami. I keep going back to him because he's such an innovator and quiet about it. All he ever wanted to do was work for a Cy over at WCCC.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what I wanted.
Never achieved his goal. So here's what I've done. I kind of think of my background and the way we are, and I thought, how do we get around the agencies with my cheesecake? So I figured out, instead of making the cheesecake, which I have, I tried selling it online, and it's very expensive. It's $30 to ship at UPS, which incidentally they're letting 17,000 people go this week. Isn't that wonderful? But it's $30 to ship, and the cake is $20 to make. So who wants a $50 cheesecake when you go to Costco and get one for $9 and be happy? But it's a very good product. But I'm thinking, how can I make this different? So I figured it out. I'm making a small cake, and what I do now is I make a junior cake, a small one. And what got me off on it was Wegmans, because they have these to-go stuff. We're in a to-go society, a delivery society ever since pandemic, and I have now these little. I put them together, and I'm going to sell them to corporations that have the customer base. So I'm putting the Joey Reynolds double chocolate in an out burger, so I don't have to advertise. I don't have to spend any money on advertising, which is a horrible thing for us to say. And I also don't have to kiss the agency's ass because they're already doing it. And then I have one for Applebee's. I have the Joey Reynolds cheesecake, apple cheesecake. And I have the one for JetBlue. I have the JetBlue berry cheesecake. So I'm going to the corporate way of getting through the door to reach the platform of the audience they already have. So I don't have to convince anybody to like me. You're just going to serve who they have. They've already done the legwork. And so what I've done in doing that, and why I'm telling you about it, is I found a way to use the corporations for the audience base, which used to be the other way around. We had to deliver the audience to the corporations. Now I'm going to have the corporation deliver the audience to me. That's why I'm telling you the story. And I think we've got to be more clever. We've got to start doing things with this contemporary society we live in now. That's two words, con and temporary. So we have a different kind of a crowd. They don't have a sense of history. I have 5 grandchildren, most of them under 14, and they what happens. It's a video jungle. And it's all about killing people online. That's a whole issue, but that's true. I lived in Harlem, and I used to laugh about my car. I drove a General Motors car, all the time because I had a sponsor who was Cadillac, and so I said, I don't care if anybody steals my car in front of my house. I was on 116th Street in Harlem. I said, because when it gets stolen, it's going to come back here. This is where they put them. So I get my car back again. But, you can have fun with things, but the seriousness of it is that we need to have the agencies do the dirty work. That's what I'm presenting. Now, think about it. You don't have to comment now if you don't want to, but that's my crazy mind. Well, what a great assembly this is, Steve. You've done a great job.
Oh yeah, well, TJ Lambert just joined us too. I mean, it is one of the.
He's great. He's another one that made ESPN what it is today.
Hey, TJ.
Hey, Steve. Joey freaking Reynolds. How are you?
I'm good. Does everybody know that what he did for ESPN and how he took that and made it really work? You guys know that?
No, I worked at ESPN for 30 years, so I did not know that.
TJ,
I was there. ESPN radio guy.
Yeah, I was there for 17 years. So,
wow.
And when I started, it was weekend stuff, and then we picked up the NBA, then we went 24/7, then we picked up baseball, and then the college football championship series. So it was the full package. It was it was pretty cool. It's not at all like that. I listen to it anymore and go, what are they thinking? And what they're thinking is it's TV guys trying to do radio. So we all know that radio guys do it with pictures better than TV. So what the hell? Hey, Joey, did we have more fun at POP than a whole barrel of monkeys or what?
Joe Amateur fired me because I was too young, and we were number one. But he kicked my ass out of there, and he never made the station back to where it was. The reason I was able to play Sherry for 4 hours on the air, because don't forget, WPOP had a remote facility where the transmitter was, but we were right across from on Asylum Street, perfectly named, and so we had the studio there, and I had an engineer in another place. So very easily, when I was playing Sherry, I had 2 discs and 2 tables, and I went back and forth and did nothing but segue. And when I went back and forth and did that for 4 hours, you probably wonder why the engineer didn't cut it off. He was union. Maybe that's it. Or you probably wonder, why didn't someone in management say, hey, what's going on here? I didn't authorize this. And then when the cops came in and arrested me, but I guess a lot of people don't realize that the program director of the station was Morton Downey Jr., who was crazier than me.
Oh, yeah.
He kept the thing on. He kept saying, no, don't cut it off. Don't cut it. So we played that record for 4 hours. And, of course, it's in Jersey Boys, but they used a black guy because there was inclusion. And, we had that when the show opened in Coronado Beach in San Diego, they used a black guy because he had 3 roles in the play. They didn't know they were going to go to Broadway. That's the reason for that. But, I've had such a wonderful career with all you guys. I mean, we've had so much fun. And I'm grateful. Aren't you grateful that we were able to have this time? Look at what we've done. We've had such a great life. We've got great lives, whether we got rich or we got poor. We had fun being poor. If you can imagine.
Well, I think...
Joey, tell us about how the jingle came about with you and 4 Seasons and Frankie Valli.
Well, I made the record a hit, and I was friends with Bob Crew. David LaRue, who was the first disco artist legitimately, was on Pyramid Records at the time, was friends with Bob, and he always wanted Bob to record him, but Bob didn't care about disco. And he was at the recording session in the Taft Hotel. I was in the basement, and Bob didn't have any money. He was a show off, but we were image conscious. So Bob had the 4 Seasons as background singers he had a big hit record years ago with Frank Slay was producing with him. I don't know if you remember that from Swan Records, but he had a hit record, and the guy that he had the hit record with, Bob, was still trying to record him, even though it was years ago. And the 4 Seasons were the background at this session. And it was a really inexpensive date, They even supplied the track because at that time, Tommy DeVito played guitar and Nicky played the bass and Bob Gaudio played the keyboard. So, and then they had a really good drummer, but not in the group. And then you had Frankie, whose voice was exceptional, but not needed. So they were all in the room and they were the background guys. And then Frankie hit those high notes. And Bob Gaudio had the song that he was talking to with Bob. It was simple, called Sherry. They were going to do a big production and they were holding off on it. But Bob just took it and ran with it that day. He used a board on the floor and he used his boots to make that sound like that. I mean, they didn't have any money. There was no money. And so Bob put that together. And David LaRue from Connecticut, who went to, he was from Hamden, and he and I were friends. And we were both at the session. He was trying to get Bob to record him. I was Bob's friend from Buffalo. And so at that time, I was not on the air in Buffalo, but I was his friend from Buffalo. So what happened was David came to the station at WPOP the next day on a Monday when I had the show on POP at night, and he brought me 2 acetate discs. It wasn't even mastered yet. It wasn't mixed totally. At Bell Sound, they would pre-mix it, kind of. That was the way records were made back in those days. And then you would take the acetate and you would find out how you were going to actually do it. So I had the 2 acetates. That's what I worked off. And I had 2 of them. David gave me his copy. I had my copy, and I went back and forth and played them for 4 hours. And then we got stopped by the cops. And of course, you know, Bertha had a fit over there at DRC because finally they thought we all flipped out and were going to sign off. You know, she always loved the fact that we were making mistakes. See, this was always a mistake. Everything you did was that would make the audience happy, but it would make the format unhappy is a mistake. I said, wait a minute.
Wow.
The mistake is the format, not us. We're the ones that are doing it. And so we got everybody crazy with it. And it became a pickup with Dick Smith at Worcester, WORC, who reported to Gavin. And then Gavin reported to Billboard, and it became a national hit. So Frankie, I never took payoff. I hated it because I don't want anybody to own me. I couldn't be myself if I took money. And that's the only reason. I wasn't virtuous. I just didn't want to be owned by any of these thugs. And then many of them were. They were just worse than they were the scum of the earth, a lot of them. But you know what? This is the secret of America. Americans, the public, still don't know that what made a hit record was a promotion man. It was never the jock. It was not this is how you got to eventually Freddie DeCipio, who was more crooked than my penis. You know, I mean, you got all these guys found a way to work around the charts and make money by being middlemen. So what they would do is they got in the middle of the promotion guy and bought off the executives on the company and gave them a lot of money, and all the payoffs started. So I never took payoffs. Now, let me further that. I didn't know this. Phil Zoppi was a manager of the station. He was a carnival barker at Riverside Park. And he had that business on the side, plus he was the manager of the station. He was a carnival guy. And I was one day, I was a promotion man came in, and I was smoking in those days. We smoked inside. I had the Salem cigarettes, and the guy took the pack of cigarettes and asked me, bummed a cigarette, and then gave me my package back. And I realized after he left that he stuffed money in there. And this is the promotion guy. So, you know, I had his record, but I thought, oh my, I don't want to be involved in this. So I turned the money back into Phil Zoppi. I said the next day, as the manager, I said, you know, I can't, this is what happened to me last night. I was 19 years old. And I'm sure Phil took the money. But, you know, so the payoff went to the manager of the station. And who was guessing weight and age in Riverside Park. Anyway, Morton Downey was the program director. He was crazy. I was crazy. Played the records the way we wanted to. Scott Kilgore owned the station out of Cuddle, which was one of the first top 40 stations in the world, and he tried to remotely program the music. So we were giving the music from Kansas City, and I would take the sheet and tear it up. I never played any of his songs. I thought they were stupid. It didn't have anything to do with what we were doing. And then, so we took the Wild Weeds and made that a hit and did this and did that. But all the things that we did because of our own imagination and our own creativity. And we defied everybody because we could get away with it without being fired modestly. Because we were creating something until Joe Amateur came along and wanted to organize the world, and he failed. But you know, he made it with other things. But he did not have a success at POP. He was a real big failure. And he didn't follow the game. He followed the format, not the game. But he was from Indianapolis, where he had a format station. I think it was Wire, I believe. And then that station was all formatic. You know, see, the format is killing people. It still is. Because you know, you mentioned a little while ago now. Let me go to your own talk on this little thing we have here. You mentioned that you have Joe Rogan. Now, first of all, Spotify is owned by Warner Brothers and Sony. It's a payola company. So let's put this on the line here. Let's not fool each other. And he's the spokesperson for it and a puppet. So that's that. Now, knowing that, you know it. The public doesn't have to know it. They don't know it. They never would know it. The thing that they don't know is about promotion. They didn't know that Ron Luxembourg showed up from Columbia Records and brought Red Rubber Ball, and it was the worst record in history. There were a couple of them, and put this bullshit songs. I'm not talking about the other stuff that was really good, like Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and Chicago, and everything else Columbia had. But you know, we had these guys would go from city to city. They provided the information on the music, but they also knew the jobs. They knew who was being fired. They knew who was working and not working. And so they were the employment for us. They got us jobs. They presented the gossip. We did shows. So the forgotten people, or the unknowns to the public, the promotion men, they don't know how all these, the Rolling Stones and everybody that was on Capitol that Al Corey made famous. These guys went around making hit records. That's what they did. They're the ones who gave us all the concert acts. And it's probably someone could do a documentary on that one day. But you know who they are, and they were famous. And one of them over at DRC was Mac David. What was his name? The one that was sleeping with Bertha. We thought
that was Mac. It was Mac.
Mac Clark. Yeah, Mac Clark. He was Atlantic. He would get anything played except his lunch. But these guys, see, we had a fun business. We had a culture. And Boy George named it well, Culture Club. We had a culture club. We don't have it anymore.
You know what? Hey, Joey, you bring back great memories, and you started with Sherry to show how old I am. The first song that I danced on, Dick.
Well, what happened was Bob gave me he never gave me payoff. I didn't want to take payoff. So he recorded that with the London Symphony, and it's Frankie Valli and the London Symphony doing my thing. That's what Bob gave me. And then he hired me to go on the road for 2 weeks every summer to when I have vacation. And I emceed the concerts. That's how he paid me. I got $1,500 to go to Providence and say, here's the Four Seasons. You know, they didn't need me.
The very first song I ever danced on American Bandstand was Sherry. And that was in 1963, and my dance partner was named Sherry. So there's a lot of cool stories back in those days. And the second thing was promotion. And I spent several years at Casablanca doing promotion. But I think for our next call, what we ought to do is there were some unbelievable promotion guys in Hartford, from Davey Demers to Merv Amos to Bob Greenberg, the father of Jerry Greenberg, and you had Sal and Jimmy and Lenny Pizzi and all Stan Bly and all those guys that promoted in Hartford. That's a whole call in and of itself with the stories. And I've got a million Merv Amos, but I got a really good one. So
Merv's always stayed close, and you're funny, but you're not as funny as your old man.
Yeah.
He would stop me in the parking lot and unload the trunk with albums and say,
"Oh, that's great."
But I did stay close with Merv right up until the very end. He always kept his wife Sylvia would always wear a giant Beatles T-shirt, But the stories he had, he was wearing his Iron Maiden
Unbelievable.
silk jacket, I think, when he was 90 years old. But yeah, Merv was a great one. Remember?
I can still hear him yelling at Dick Springfield. And
oh my God,
his office is way the hell down the hall, and I'm in the studio with the door closed, and I can hear Merv yelling at Dick, "Play this record!"
But and then and I left Hartford and went to Philly and ended up in the MD at Wi-Fi, and talk about another whole, and Fred DeCipio, of course, but another whole group of promotion guys like Matty Singer and just so many guys.
Hey, TJ, last week I played. I don't know if you remember or heard about this, but when Matty passed away, he had a eulogy that he did by himself. He recorded it, and they played it at the synagogue. Oh man, it was just. I still have.
I gotta find that. I gotta find that.
On that, he said, "I want to be buried with my face down, so you can all kiss my ass."
Yeah, no, kiss my fucking ass.
Yeah.
Matty was a trip, man. You knew Matty, right, TJ?
He became another.
Oh,
did
God,
I know?
yes.
I used to go to the RDA club with him and get beaten with oak leaves. That was the whole thing.
Well, and when I was doing nights in Scranton before I went to Wibbage, all the Philly guys came up there to promote records at Warm because it was a launch pad for Philly. And if it was a hit in Scranton, it was probably going to be a hit in Philly. And all of those guys made the hour and a half, 2 hour trip up the Northeast extension to come to WARM with arguably one of the greatest PDs, right in there with your dad, Stevie, George Gilbert, who was just a gem of a PD. And I learned more from him, and he taught me enough to get me to Wibbage. So I was a young jock, and he figured out, you do this, and you'll get to a major market, and it worked out pretty well. So,
Joey, you've stayed relevant, and I've loved the follow you on Facebook, and I love the fact that Joey, you always you stay current with stuff, and I mean, even for a lot of us, it's hard to do that, but you've always stayed right up to speed on it. But I will tell you though, I saw Frankie a few years ago at the Bushnell, and he made sure that he said at that concert how much Hartford meant to him. He talked about POP, talked about DRC. He had Bertha Porter working POP, but he was a little bit off on a few things. But he didn't forget. But I will say, shortly before my dad passed away, there was a Big D Big show that they did at the Hartford Civic. And this is in November of 1992, and nobody had seen my dad because after his health issues back in the mid-'80s and all the other things he'd been through, and he lost the use of his vocal cords, and he really hadn't been. Well, they were bringing a show in, and the comment came from Wayne Mulligan and said, Frankie wants to know if Charlie Parker's going to be there. And I tell you, my dad looked at me, anybody in years, he goes, what color shirt should I wear? And we drove my dad's car, actually drove it into the backstage of the Civic Center, pulled up by the buffet table, and he got out, and my sister and her husband and my dad and I had front row center seats. And do you know, Frankie stopped the concert and said, I've got to tell you, I got to say hi to my good friend, Charlie Parker. Spotlights came down for them, and my dad took the microphone, even with his hoarse voice, and basically thanked everybody. And no matter what, I mean, Buckley, all kinds of Buckley through the years, but Buckley came over and gave him a hug and said, Chaz, we wouldn't have any of this without you. But I remember when he was talking with Frankie in the spotlight, Frankie got all done. My dad looks at him and goes, what a tremendous surprise. You really surprised me. Swear to God.
Yeah, that's good. That's awesome.
Frankie goes into a whole nother song, and my dad's like, he blew it. But
what an absolute treat to see you, my brother. This has been awesome. I'm sorry I was late. I'm sure there were great stories along the way.
It's always a headliner like that. And Joey, and I have to admit, when you came back and said you were going to be on the show, I'm going, we'll wait and see, because I know you're all over the place. But the fact that you did say that Ann Usello lifted the gag order made me feel pretty good that you would be.
Well, awesome. I could sit here and do all those bad jokes, but I figured that we'd have a little shop talk for a change. That was why I apologize to someone who was expecting entertainment.
No. So you pointed out exactly what I said. Is you're relevant. You're talking about where it is. I think one of the concerns, we had Inc. magazine on here a few weeks ago. One of the concerns, if we have opinions on where it is now and where it's going, especially you guys that are all, 90% of you are all my big D brothers. I think it's important that that we have these get-togethers. But I will say the fact that the show doesn't just talk about yesteryear. It talks about yesteryear, some great.
Yeah.
It also gives opinions on where it may be going. And I think maybe between the bunch of us sitting around here, there's some seeds that can be planted, and there's guys like Joey that'll carry them through. But I want
I'm not done. As a matter of fact, I have my replacement here.
Hey, Joey, you were great. Joey, you were great on OR, and I remember back when I was on the air at POP with Dave Overson, and you were coming on the air at POP overnights, and it was great. And you said something that meant a lot to me, and that was like the first time I really had a chance to do talk radio. But I'll never forget, Joey. You said, "I knew that you'd do something like this. You just had to get the texture." And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. You can,
Amen.
but if you don't have that foundation and you don't have that texture, I think that makes a difference. But I want to say that did have a lot to do with why I felt we could go somewhere with it. And I think talk radio and what we've been doing here is personality. I think some of the guys who do this stuff on talk.
Yeah.
Even better if they added a few records. But
there was a headline. There was a headline this week in all the trades, and it really speaks to where radio is today. And I said to myself when I read it, if the Newhoff family is getting out of radio and selling all of their stations, which were hyper local, we're not in the best place that we should be and where we can be. And we talk about a lot of that on these calls, but it was really a wake-up call to me because they were a smaller market, media market group, and they're selling everything, and it tells you where we're really at.
Yeah.
Well,
I really appreciate being in the company of all of these you great guys. This is a wonderful treat for me.
Well, people never forget, Joey, and I
come back, Joey. You got to come back.
I don't forget any of you guys. Come on, this is a two-way street.
Yeah, thanks. This was a great hour, a terrific hour.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Let's only for I know a lot of people are going to be listening to this one, so if you guys don't mind,
Steve, keep it going. Keep it going. Keep the recording going.
Dave says I can, so Dave is the master who's got to edit this thing. So forget all these things. I was giving you a great out too, Dave.
That's too important.
Guys, before we leave, may I say, you guys have to know what T.J. Lambert did. It's another one of those silent things that somebody that was a disc jockey, and then he went into something and he made something big, but it doesn't get the credit for it necessarily. He got paid, but that's credit. But, I think we have so many good people here. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
For having me part of this. Thank you.
It's been fun for me to rehook with all the guys in Hartford. I was only there for a cup of coffee, but it seems much longer. And it was and is great to hook up with everybody. And I'm just amazed you're on the call. This has been really fun.
Dave, what do you remember? You had some time with Joey.
Oh yeah. I first met Joey. I was putting together for Mike Holland's show a loop of Ooga Chukka on of Blue Suite. And so when I was talking to your father, Steve, and I said to him, we should do Ooga Chukka. What if we looped it a la Joey Reynolds style? And father said, yeah, go ahead. We'll do it. So I'm in the production room putting this loop together. Your father walks in with this guy and he says, by the way, I want you to meet somebody. And I turned around and there was Joey. I didn't know Joey from a hole in the wall at that point and only heard the great history of him. And so we shook hands and the rest was history. So when they were playing Ooga Chukka, Joey, I don't know if you remember this part. Yeah. We went down to the Last National Bank. We got a couple of drinks and the waitress comes by and we had a transistor radio and I'm playing Ooga Chukka. And the girl comes by, she goes, oh, I like that song. So then she got the drinks, came back, and it was still going Ooga Chukka, Ooga Chukka. She goes, That's still going, and without a split second, you turn around and go, yeah, that's the album version of the song. And so then we went upstairs, and that's when the cops showed up, and that was that. But also worked with Joey in his radio station down in Lakewood, New Jersey, with Kevin Morris and help clean up that station technically. And that's my experience with Joey. Great time, great fun.
Hey, Bob Craig, you've got some.
I've got one. Remember, Joey, you and I had never worked together in Hartford, but I remember one time you were at Wibbage. This was in August of 1970. And three or four of us from DRC decided we were going to go down to Philadelphia and check things out. And I think it may have been Dick McDonough. I don't know. Somebody made contact with you and said we were going to come down. Who was in there? There was Dick and myself. There was Bo Raines, and there was also Bob Cohen, who was our newsman, Lee Roberts, Bob Cohen. And when we got to Wibbage, we were knocking on all these doors and windows to try and get in. But this is probably like really late at night. And I think you came out and thought that we were coming down with Bob Coe, the engineer at DRC. Oh. You couldn't have fathomed Bob Coe coming down because Bob was quite old at that time. And I believe you let us in, and we roamed around the station. And then we spent the weekend down at Wibbage. We not only at Wibbage, but this was at the same time that J.J. Jeffrey was at FIL. And I remember we went across the street from the WFIL, where they have the rotund building. TJ, you know where that is. And the old CAU building. And there was a hotel, the Adams Mark Hotel, was across from WFIL. And we spent a whole evening there drinking and laughing and just having a great time. That was really about it. The only time that I really met you. But I've always enjoyed what you did and how you broke through with some very unique things, and especially that jingle. And did I understand correctly when you were talking about Cherry, that jingle was done at the same session?
No, Sherry was done as a recording for the Four Seasons, and my jingle, the Joey Reynolds theme, was not done then. No.
Was it done after? I was told
because that was Big Girls Don't Cry, which was the next record.
Okay. Yeah, I was told that it was done. It was sung over the Hollywood Strings version of "Big Girls Don't Cry." It wasn't actually
because Bob recorded it in London. He was friends with Oliver, with Lionel Bart, who wrote Oliver. Yep. And I went to England, and I met with him, and he was a famous. Bob was always a show business guy. He loved Broadway producers and shows and all that business. He was really very involved in theater. And I went to London, and I met, I stayed with Mick Jagger at the time. He was at the Hilton Hotel, and then I moved over to Andrew Lou Goldham's house, who was the producer. And Andrew was going out with, she was misnamed Marianne Faithfull. She wasn't very faithful at all in those days, but we were all doing a lot of drugs, so it wasn't a good time. I think I'm sober 40 years now. So
God bless you, man. Congratulations.
God bless you.
I'm very happy to be. So I wouldn't be here. Bob recorded that with the London Symphony. And then he did the voiceover with Frankie when he brought the tracks back to New York.
Yeah, Joey taught us all how, or at least he taught me how to prank the all-night guy, Sonny Shores, when he came and we did our annual April Fool's Day thing, and we looped For the Love of Money. And Ooga Chugga, that's a Merv Amol story. But we looped that. And then one time with Sonny Shores, we looped two things. One was the intro to Robert John, The Lion Sleeps Tonight, and he tried to hit the post and it restarted. And the other one was we looped I know from Bill Withers, and he said it 26 times, and we looped it 10 times. So and he was using it to back time to the top of the hour and lost his mind. So, but thanks for that gift.
How about Pat Sheehan, Pat? I think didn't you fill in for him or something, Pat?
Joey came and was filling in for a week in, I think it was 1970 at DRC. And I had, as a kid, even though he and I are probably the same age, but I remember listening to him on KBW earlier. And, it was just having somebody in the building with that kind of reputation. And I remember Charlie was on pins and needles the whole time that Joey was there. And I'm pretty sure that Joey was there for the first Earth Day. And I remember him hanging out a window as there was a parade that was going down Main Street past 750 Main. And people were just, holding their breath until he finished up his week with us, because everybody was on high alert because Joey was in the building. It was one of those really memorable times.
Let me just scan through here. Tracy Carmen, of course, I don't know. Tracy, were you growing up listening to him, or you must know good stuff about Joey?
Actually, I listened to Joey. I met Joey at this reunion at Hard Rock for WYNY and WNBC, and he invited me. He probably doesn't remember. He invited me to sit in on his overnight show at WOR, which unfortunately I never took advantage of. And that was a long time ago. And he's legendary, and he knows he's legendary, and that's cool. And if you're down in Florida, when I'm down in Florida, I'm sitting here in Longmeadow, Mass at the moment. I'd love to drag you out for a Chinese buffet with Lee Gordon. We go out when I'm down there.
And Dave.
And Dave Overson if he's not on a cruise somewhere.
Now let's see.
I just want to mention that when Joey was speaking earlier, he brought up the names of Howard Stern and Don Imus. And I don't think either of those guys would have existed if there hadn't have been Joey Reynolds first.
Oh, wow.
Because he was the original shock jock. He also knew where the line. Some guys crossed the line, and Joey knew where the line was and was smart enough to never cross the line. He would go up to the line, and that's a skill that some of these pretenders never quite acquired.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you.
But just a few things. My dad, I always remember, would be sitting at the typewriter in the dinette, banging the shit out of it, putting stuff together for Joey. I know he would always be throwing ideas and stuff out Joey's way. And I also remember when you were living out in Beverly Hills, I think you were next door to Paul Lind, and you went outside and you were emptying your trash, and he looked at you and called you a garbage pig.
No, he says he never talked to me except one day he drank himself to death, matter of fact. So he always had booze in the trash can, and he was discreet about it. And one day the garbage got returned too close for him to not acknowledge me. And he came outside and he says, "Hello, trash person." So I was known as trash person for a long time. Peter Marshall remembers this story too. These are good days, good days. Hey, listen, we've had a wonderful time.
And I think,
and
we would be remiss, Joey, if we didn't mention a couple of things, like the night that you did your show from the freight elevator. I mean, really, Joey, that whole block in front of 750 was nothing but listeners and police cars. And my dad was in the back hallway saying, "I'm not here." It's like,
yeah, because he didn't want to take the blame for anything.
Never. And but and then when the last time I think, Joey, was when we went to the Red Coach for lunch. And you and my dad and myself sat there, and you went up to the salad bar and took the biggest friggin' gourd out of the salad bar and handed it to the waitress and asked her if she could cut that up for you.
Oh, don't even remind me of that.
These people are just so straight. And then one person said to you one time, "Would you ever come back to Hartford?" And you said no. And then you said, "For Charlie Parker, I would." And that meant a lot.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm the original TikTok with all this crap that you've mentioned today.
And of course, the fact that you've never stopped saying that Mayor Usello is what?
A dumb broad. We don't even use those words anymore.
All right,
yeah,
we got to get out of here. But thank you so much, and hopefully, Joey, please stop by anytime, even if it's just a few minutes, or you know, or any thoughts, suggestions for what we do here, or bring anybody else onto the show, and bring promo guys. I don't care. I think the next show, though, let's see if we can get you back and talk about some of the promo men next week.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. I love you. Thank you.
All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Radio Friends again. Wow, what a time. Had a great time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed listening and being part of it as much as we all did. So until we catch you next time, I'm Steve Parker, and this has been Radio Friends again. Take care, everybody.
Your friend has got a lot to share.